everyone. For this Animation Friday, I thought it would be interesting to briefly discuss music within animation and its impact over the years. Now, music in animation has pretty much existed early on with its founding, especially when we started to see the talkies really evolving and creating this massive amount of capacity to use music as a means to express a story and enhance the entertainment value of the animation. This music stems from way back to the Silly Symphonies, with Looney Tunes, those kinds of things really started sort of the building blocks for what would later be musicals, animated musicals in particular. And we see this with, again, the start of the feature-length animated film with Snow White. It was a musical. It did have songs. It did have musical accompaniment. It presented itself not only as the first full-length animated feature film, but the first musical animated feature film. And since then, sort of the rest is history when it comes to music in animation. It's been there since the relative start, when we saw sound being really utilized within animation and within filmmaking. And some people might say, well, why is animation compared to a live-action film unique when it comes to music? Well, for one thing, animation allows you to really embrace the imaginative side of our human psyche. So what we can't really do in live action, we can do in animation. And what we do within animation is we really explore various emotions, and we kind of paint a mental image of what we want to ultimately be presented. Whereas with live action films, you have to have some grounds within reality in order to make it possible, because, again, you need actors, you need a lot of different people that are in charge of various different things in order to make the final product. Whereas with animation, it's really focused in on trying to create a story from literally scratch. And with live action films, I think there is less of a tendency for it to be fairly autonomous, compared to animation, where there is kind of this clear vision. There's obviously going to be disagreements within animation circles, but I think the majority of cases is usually animation does have this one clear image and wants to create these various emotions, and it has this goal that it wants to ultimately set. Whereas with live action, there's a lot of different hoops and different changes that end up resulting, and what you really get is sort of a mixture, I think, of different people's perspectives, and therefore a lot of different emotions, but there's no clear one-sided mental image. Whereas with animation, it's really clear that that's the image it wants to present, because it's literally what the animator drew. It's literally what the story is telling. And with that, there's a lot of emotional attachment with what you're animating, because you're actually creating it on your own. You're not designating that creation to an actor or to a producer. Well, maybe sometimes you need producers for animation, but at the same time, you ultimately make the animation, and you are the one that takes the time and the effort to put it all on to paper or onto a computer. And as a result, I think this kind of mental image and visual style that animation offers is what catered it to being having a wide interest and appeal to music. That's why we see a lot of the early Walt Disney films that really did focus on putting in music. It doesn't mean that the music was in the form of a musical, all of them per se, but there was this incorporation of music, and it seemed like Walt Disney was fairly passionate about music, and you really do see that within the majority of Disney films, especially when a lot of them are musicals and they do have musical numbers, musical accompaniment. And they create some of probably the most memorable of songs, of performances, and they're all characters just conceptualized through the mind. And I think when people have sort of that conceptualization of something, usually there's some hidden emotions and feelings that sort of come out and are presented. And it allows those who are doing the music with animation to really shine and have things sort of flow. The interesting thing too is that since animation is considered an art form, it only makes sense that art within and of itself is based within emotion, and so is music. And there have been various tests and practices that have been done to children to ask them to draw something as they are listening to a certain kind of music. And they're supposed to draw what their emotions reflect. And I think it only makes sense that animation would really try to incorporate this aspect of music because of these emotional associations that we end up having. And I think in a way you could say that music is nostalgic to a certain extent for various people, especially depending on the time period they grew up in and things of that nature. And I think the more timeless you can make something with a film, it really shows when there is good music incorporated into that final product. And I think animation in general has really advocated music and having music be a means to expressing the visuals. And again, this is through live action as well, but the interesting thing though with live action is that although the emotions are there and you do feel it, animation just has this way of making it flow with the music. That, and it's something that I don't think live action can really fully capture. For example, something like Fantasia could not be captured in the same way in real life, I believe, as it is within animation. And there's just a lot of emphasis with music when it comes to animation. And I think a lot of it has to do not only with its history, like I've mentioned, but also because of the emotions that build up when creating something that is literally from the mind and conceptualized through the mind in this way, and being able to lay it out all in the open without any real sort of outside help, more of internal thinking, and internalizing how a character is going to look like and what their emotions are going to be. Those things really do require that extra creativity, I think. And as a result, I think that's why the music, in particular in animation, has been so memorable. It has been so catchy. It has been so upbeat and whimsical, and at the same time, very emotional and deep. Those kinds of incorporations that music has had with regards to the emotions is what really brings out the light that animation wants to shine on the audience. And I think it is only fair to say that music will continue to be a part of animation. Even today, we're still seeing this with the latest Disney films, that they have incorporated musical accompaniment and songs within their animated films, and I think that'll probably continue, and we will see that be a part of animation even more so. And although there's some animated films that are not generated as being musicals, they still offer some kind of musical accompaniment, and even with the musical accompaniment, you do see how it sort of enhances the various settings and story that ultimately is trying to be conveyed. So I think it only makes sense that that music would leave such a profound impact on animation, and will continue to be an important part of what animation has to offer in the future. And I think a lot of what we remember, at least when it comes to music within films, I think a lot of people can say that animation has left a profound impact when it comes to music and musical scores and musicals and the idea of incorporating music into film. That will, I think, always be an important part of animation. It's almost like you can't have music without animation. You can have music without animation, but you can't have animation without music. Although, again, there's probably certain things that you could, or certain bits of music that you could take out and it wouldn't really alter anything with the animation, but I think the music makes it all the more engaging and really brings out the emotions of the animation for the most part. There might be some exceptions, but I think even with just the background music, there's still having that music there really conveys you as to what the person was thinking when they decided to do this one piece of animation. So ultimately, I think that's really all I can say when it comes to this topic. It's, I think, a very significant part of animation. I think it'll remain there for a long time. I don't think there's definitely a doubt that it'll ever cease. Maybe into the certain capacity. I'm not sure if musical animated films will be around for another 50 years or 20 years. But I think that it's still fairly popular the idea of incorporating music within animation and having characters sing songs and express certain circumstances and emotions, those are the things that's really going to, I think, leave an impact on a lot of people. So I don't think they're going to take it away, but it might depend on in what capacity they would like to keep music in. And then again, it all depends on what the market wants. If there's if musicals are not considered popular, then Disney won't do musicals. It all really just depends on the trend, but I think there is something universal about this acceptance of having songs within animation. Usually, I think people don't like, or some people don't like musicals that are live action, but they'll like musicals like Lion King, Pinocchio, Dumbo. Well, actually, Dumbo, although it does have a couple of songs, it's not really like a musical, I guess you could say, but still it has songs within it. And some that the characters do sing. It's just not as widespread when it comes to musical numbers as some other Disney films. Again, The Little Mermaid. You know, a lot of people remember the music from animation and remember, and not only will they remember it, but they'll kind of carry it on. And I think it only makes sense that good music sort of never dies, really. And a lot of that great music that I think we've seen has come from animation and has come from using musicals as a way of expressing the characters and their emotions. And I think it will be a very important part of what it has to offer in the future. It just depends, again, on what capacity. But I think that's all I can really say about this topic. Again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.